Imagine this, you walk up to the door, 60, 70 square, you knock on the door, the person's happy-go-lucky, you do your pitch, everything's going well, they hit you with an objection, and then all of a sudden you don't know how to answer it. And the conversation goes from happy-go-lucky to all of a sudden confrontational. It's because of you. What's up everybody, I'm Jay Bradley and I've helped thousands of sales reps put more money in their pockets by utilizing the skills that I'm gonna share with you on this video. These are the exact skills that have helped small teams grow to 8 and 9-figure businesses. And today, I'm breaking all of them down for you. Here's what we're gonna cover today. Our proven framework to overcome any objection, 4 common objections we get in the field, plus the most common objection we get and how we handle it differently. And at the end of this video, you'll get a free guide that will help you get through any objection by utilizing this framework. So the framework that I utilize is called ASK. It's acknowledge, solution, kickback. First, we're gonna start with acknowledge. Now, I learned this living with my fiance Kim for so long. She never was heard. Whenever she would say something, I wouldn't acknowledge it. I'd go directly into answering the question. So sometimes when she comes at me and says something like, I don't know, I didn't fold the blanket, I would say, well, I didn't fold the blanket because of 1, 2, and 3. Instead of acknowledging the fact that I didn't fold the blanket. Oh, boo, I'm sorry I didn't fold the blanket. That's my bad. I didn't fold it because of 1, 2, and 3, and then we go from there. So acknowledgement, whenever you're handling objections, is so vitally important. So what I want you to do is, whenever a homeowner gives you an objection, the very first thing you need to do is to let them know that you heard that objection. This is probably the #1 thing that I see as far as objection handling that too many new reps don't utilize. Because a lot of times when I acknowledge it, let's just say that they say they're gonna wait for their significant other to be home, I'm gonna say, oh no, I completely get it. And while I'm saying, oh no, I completely get it, what I'm really doing is giving myself a little time to come up with the next step, which is solution. So that brings us to solution. Solution is just simply the answer, right? So if a homeowner was to say, hey, my spouse isn't home, then I'm gonna acknowledge, first step, right? Hey, listen, I get it. You know, me and my fiance, we make decisions together all the time. Then I'm gonna go to the second step, the solution. Hey, while we're in the area and we're actually doing these free roof inspections and the sun's out, do you mind if we go ahead and actually jump on the roof, take a few photos, and then leave that documentation so that way you and your spouse have something to review later? That's the solution. So here's why solution works. Mainly what I'm doing is I'm just coming back and I'm answering whatever their objection is with something that's logical. Now, you gotta make sure your solution is logical and makes sense. It would make sense for us to go ahead and do the inspection while we're in the neighborhood, just to knock it out and go ahead and get the documentation so they have something to review. So always make sure that your solution is a logical answer or response back to the objection that they said. Now, how do we know what solution to give to what objection? It's just gonna take a little time. But ultimately, the biggest thing is to practice. Practice in the mirror, practice with a spouse, practice with a buddy, find a friend to practice with. And if they feel like you're being combative, then you're doing it wrong. But if they feel like that your solution is logical and makes sense, then you're doing it right. So just try to come up with a logical solution for each one of the objections that you're getting on a regular basis. And the key here is to stay in control of the conversation. And by doing that, you need to practice your solutions, because that way when you get it in the field, it won't be such a surprise. Now the last part of this is called kickback. Now kickback is after you've given the acknowledgement and the solution, you need to ask them another question. It blows me away in the field how often people will give the solution and just stand there and not ask another question. So there's 2 ways to handle this. We're either gonna ask for the business or we're gonna ask an open-ended question. So you may ask an open-ended question, let's just say that potentially they have another roofer, right? You're gonna acknowledge, you're gonna give the solution, and then you're gonna say something along the lines of, do they do insurance work or whatnot, right? Okay, you're just gonna ask an open-ended question so that way they can give you more of a description of what's going on. And then from my perspective, if I'm ready to close them right then I'm gonna do the obtaining information close, which is virtually just a tie down with their names, which would be something along the lines of, sounds good, right? What's your name? So you have 2 options when it comes down to kickback. We're either kicking back to get more information or we're kicking it back to close them. Now we're gonna go over this framework and how we utilize it to answer some of the most common objections out in the field. Objection 1, I already have a roofer. Hey, no, I completely get it. You know, a lot of folks around here have told us they have a roofer as well. So what I'm actually trying to figure out is your roofer a insurance professional or do they physically put the roof on? So I acknowledge that they said it. The solution was that a lot of their neighbors are actually doing the same thing. They already have a roofer. But then the kickback was me asking, hey, is that roofer doing insurance work or are they doing just the physical labor? And then as we go through the conversation, I can ask a little bit more. Objection 2, we don't have damage. First and foremost, if you get this objection, chances are you're not utilizing the intro framework, which is in a previous video, so check that video out. But if they say that I don't have damage, I just want you to understand we need to acknowledge it, we need to give a solution, and then we need to answer, right? And we need to kick it back. So what I'm gonna do is, this is gonna be a close, I'm gonna say, hey, I completely get it. Listen, the reason we're in the area is because, you know, some of the carriers are saying there's damage in the area. How about we go ahead and get documentation that you don't have damage? That way you got it for your files, just in case the insurance was to ever say anything down the road. Sounds good, right? What's your name? And then I'm gonna write their name down. Logically, if they don't have damage, we need to document the fact that they don't have damage because their neighbors are getting qualified for a roof. So we should go ahead and go through that. So that's how I handle no damage. So, objection number 3, we don't want to go through our insurance. Hey, listen, I get it. Nobody wants to go through the insurance. And if you know, like I know, that this doesn't work like a car incident or anything else, right? This is an act of God. And so understanding this and having the knowledge that this is an act of God, and whenever they go and actually file claims, their insurance carriers are going to raise the premiums for everybody in their territory, their zip code, their area, so that way they can get their money back, right? So that's the way I try to handle it with the homeowners. So if they say, well, I don't want to go through my insurance, I say, hey, I completely get it. Listen, most people don't want to file a claim, they won't do anything because they don't want the premiums to go up. I'm assuming that that's what you're concerned about, is that right? So I'm just asking them, I'm just kicking back a question. I'm just making sure that that's the question, that they don't want to go through their insurance because of some reason. So I'm just simply having a conversation with them. So if they were to say, that's correct, I say, great. So the way it actually works, if you don't mind, I'll explain it really quick. A majority of the neighbors are getting a roof. And when a majority of the neighbors get a roof, what happens is the premiums in this area go up. And because the premiums in the area are going up, if you don't have the new roof, you're gonna be more at risk through the carriers and your premiums are really gonna go up. So let's at least see if you don't have anything going on, it'd be great. We'll get the photos and kind of go from there. Sounds good, right? What's your name? So number 4 is, it sounds expensive or I don't have the money or anything like that. And this is probably one of my favorite objections because if somebody doesn't have the money to get a roof, then we really need to take advantage of the insurance proceeds that are potentially coming out. Always check with your state, obviously laws and whatnot with UPA and everything else, but this is how I handle it. So if they say I don't have the money, I say, man, exactly. That's exactly why we're out here. I'm so glad you said that. Because what we're able to do right now is we're getting folks qualified through the insurance carriers to get an entirely new roof for pennies on the dollar. But we won't know anything until we know whether you qualify. It takes us about 5 or 10 minutes to kind of let you know whether you qualify or not and see if you're able to take advantage of the program. Sounds good, right? What's your name? That's it. And then I'm really quiet. If you notice that I got really quiet, that pause is what it's all about. But it made sense to them. I acknowledged that they can't afford a roof. Most people can't. Then I told them about the program potentially they could qualify for, and then I asked for the sale. That was it. Okay, and for our 5th and final objection, we actually handle this one a little bit differently, but it's one of our most common objections. It's, I'm not interested. Now, let me explain a couple things first off. Number 1, if they're saying not interested, it may be because you're speaking too fast and they don't know what you're saying. Or if they cut you off early, there's a good chance there's a lot of other people in the neighborhood. So whenever they say, I'm not interested, this is about tonality, folks, because you can't say it unless you utilize tonality. But I just simply say, oh, okay, well, may I ask why not? That's simple, that's all I say. Now, if I look at them and go, may I ask why not? Like, this is just completely different. So I'm almost curious whenever I say it. Tonality is everything whenever I say this. And I just want them to answer. I want them to tell me why not. And I would say 3 out of 10 will go, what is it again you're doing? And then there I can go give them a pitch again. They're actually listening to me the second time and we can go through it. So that's just how I handle it. It's a little different than what most do. Just understand you gotta get the tonality right so that way you can actually still have a conversation. Once you realize that this is a non-confrontational sport and you utilize these skills, man, you're gonna be able to take it to the next level. Click the link in the description and get your free 1-page Overcoming Objections guide. It'll give you the ASK framework and some of the responses to the most common objections that we get out in the field. And if you missed my last video, click here to master the first 10 seconds of your pitch.